episode 3. My name's Simeon.
Hey, it's Ben.
I'm Dale.
So the COVIDSafe App by the Australian government has been officially released now. So that's pretty interesting. We're talking in the first episode about Apple and Google putting out their app, and they sort of still haven't released it yet. But yeah, Australian government's released theirs, and theirs uses Bluetooth again to determine if you've come in contact with people. And then those two devices exchange anonymous Bluetooth IDs, which are changed every 2 hours and are stored on device for 21 days and then are deleted automatically from the app. And if you have corona, you are able to opt in and upload your data of the people you've come in contact with the last 14 days, and then it'll work out who needs to be contacted from there. So the app uses a few things to determine who you are. So it's a name, which you choose to provide, an age range, a phone number, a postcode, as well as some things it does in the background of the app, creating these Bluetooth IDs and things like that. So yeah, that's come out. What do you guys reckon? What are you thinking of the new COVIDSafe app? Have you guys downloaded it for a start, or?
I have got it myself. I guess the bottom line is that it just doesn't work properly yet. It just doesn't function correctly on Apple. And
yeah, there's definitely a
very
few
large
things.
Population of Australia. What?
There's definitely
a majority of people have iPhone.
Stopping it. I think it's somewhere around 40% of Australia have iPhones, around there. I'm not exactly sure on the number, but yeah, there's a few things. There's about just over 3 million Australians. I think it's closer to 4 million Australians have downloaded the COVIDSafe app now, and the government sort of says that they need at least 10 million people for the sort of data to start making any effect. And it's not mandatory, this app. It's an opt-in system, and that is, I guess good, but possibly if it was mandatory, that would obviously increase the amount of downloads. But and Scott Morrison's come out and said, even though it is stored on an Amazon server on Australian shores, and it is stored by the federal government, only the state governments that require the data will have access to it. And this means that not Centrelink, Homeland Security, anyone like that, or the police will have access to your data. And they've said that this is enforced with a legislation that's coming in hopefully in the end of May. So, I mean, they've said that, your data is protected by laws, so to speak, even though it's technically not at the moment. And I think that is also scaring some people away from using this app, that there are no laws in place at the moment. But yeah, and so it's similar to the Google and Apple app in terms of using just Bluetooth. It doesn't use your GPS. However, on the Google or Android side of the app, it does ask you for your location GPS data. And this is because of some features in terms of...
It asks for the permissions, yeah.
Yeah, it asks for the
permissions. Doesn't necessarily track the
actual location of you. But yeah, so that's out now. So what are you all thinking?
How many people have downloaded it so far? Have they got any numbers on how?
It's 3 to 4 million?
Yeah, between 3 and 4 million, I think. But yeah, I mean, I've downloaded it, but again, I'm on an iPhone, so if it's running in the background, and that means if you're not physically on the app screen, it is limiting, on iPhone, is limiting the Bluetooth capability, and that's just security features built into the iOS of iPhones. And so if you want it to be working, you have to have the app open whenever you're out of the house, which is just infeasible for, the majority of Australians.
It uses a lot of battery from experience. It drains battery, especially if you just have it in your pocket.
Yeah, because your phone has to be open at the time. But on Android,
which is a shame.
It's not as inconvenient because it can just be running in the background when your device is locked. So yeah, what do we think, Ben? What are we thinking?
I guess with your battery issues, it kind of depends on when you're really going to use it. So you're not really going to be using it at home, and the app only picks it up when you're interacting with someone within 1.5 meters and for over 15 minutes. So you're not really going to need it when you're out on like your casual walk. You're not going to need it when you're bike riding. It's mainly if you go shopping or if you go to, say, like a haircut.
I wonder how many, like you say, how often that is happening. Because unless you're like, standing in a line or at a hairdresser's, like you say, 15 minutes is a long time to be in 1 meter of someone, unless you're actually walking around with them or, particularly standing still for a long time. So, and also, being on the iPhone side, I guess, you have to have the app open, and the amount of times that you're standing in a line or getting a haircut and you're like, oh, just open the app. There's no incentives particularly to open the app. So I think if they had built in some things, some other features into the app, like maybe giving you news about coronavirus, this would increase the amount of times you open the app in public, on public transport.
They sort of have they already have a separate news app, so I guess they could combine it. But
so they do have some new stuff on there, but it's like Dale said, compared to their other Corona focused app, it's not as comprehensive.
It's not as comprehensive, but it is also is it the only government available app on the market right now? I don't think anything. I don't think anything else is actually released. So this is sort of almost a beta test for the applications worldwide.
Well, so there's an app in Singapore, which this app is based off, which is a Corona tracking app, and they had the exact same problems with iPhones. And so it's interesting to see that the government chose to do this, knowing that it wouldn't work on like a large chunk of devices, as well as on iPhones, you have to have an iPhone above an iPhone 10. And that is due to some API issues with Bluetooth capabilities. So you have to have an iPhone and above. So that is 3 generations, 3 years of iPhones. It depends again how often people update their phones. I'm not exactly sure on how many iPhone users are above iPhone 10s, but I would say it's not a lot. It's not the majority of people. So then again, you're cutting out another huge chunk of users.
I guess what's the alternative though?
Yeah,
there's no alternative.
It's a good question. Google and Apple are bringing theirs out, and they haven't yet, I admit, and maybe this is the sort of, we need it now, but we don't have the amount of people we wanted, and it's been out for a couple of weeks now, and, news is obviously pushing it and talking about it and everything. So I feel like the people that are going to download it have downloaded it, and we're nowhere near that 10 million, users. I don't know what the answer is, but I personally don't think this app was the right move. I think that, the scare factor, and, this might be just media, but the scare factor around Amazon storing the data at being, an American company, and therefore the US government can ask Amazon for that data at any time, is a bit scary. And, Apple and Google are also, American companies, but there is some differences with the encryption level between those companies from what they've said, and Google and Apple came out when we were talking originally about this Google and Apple app. They've sort of said that everything will be stored on device, nothing will leave your device, whereas this app looks like there will be things leaving the device onto this Amazon server.
Do you think it's better than nothing though, or would you say nothing is more secure?
I think the fact that the government is shown to be doing something is good. I just don't know if this app is the right thing to be spending their money on. I don't have anything off the top of my head to be like, oh, well, they should have spent their money on this. But I don't think it's a shock that this app isn't working, especially coming from this government who have shown that they really can't be trusted with some user data. Some past experience have sort of shown that it's just a bit scary. And, that might all be media. Well, the media definitely doesn't help that. And, the classic headlines of Amazon's, storing Australian user data is, a great headline and a good read. And that does scare a lot of people. But I think that's the point, is it does scare people, and then they're not going to be using this app. And sort of, it seems like a bit of a waste of money anyway. But maybe we'll see. Maybe there'll be an uptake all of a sudden in how many people are using the app. But yeah,
I don't think it's a bad idea. Obviously, it isn't as effective as it could be, but that's up to Apple and Google to push through the software that they're developing. But until that happens, there's just no alternative. And while it does rely on more people having the app active and installed, it is something, beyond just not going outside and wearing PPE when you're in public spaces. Obviously, it doesn't protect you from catching it at the time, but it will help to identify yourself as someone who could potentially have it, and it will lead to it can help lead to better testing, more accurate testing, making sure that if you have interacted with someone with it, you can get a test quickly done, without wasting tests and medical staff time.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
It just hasn't been executed to a level that it might need to effectively run yet. But it's just not possible. It's just not something that's feasible right now.
I'd be interested to see how much they spent on it. And if it was a large sum of money, then is that a waste? Possibly. Again, is it not a waste just to be saying, oh, we're shown doing something? I don't know. I guess you have to decide that as an Australian citizen if it's a waste of money or not on this app. But I would have liked to see them putting their money into some better areas. But
I think that's an interesting point. In Australia, we just have such little cases, and it's our new cases is the new cases per day, the rate is just going down. It's plummeted. There are no new cases in places like ACT. Active cases, people are recovering at a good rate. Our hospitals aren't overloaded.
Yeah.
So we sort of have a bit more liberty on, the places we can spend our money. If you're in somewhere like Europe, it would almost definitely all be going to hospital care and patient care.
But, yeah.
So I guess we're like here and in Singapore and, other places like Taiwan, New Zealand, there's the luxury to be able to spend our money strategically on stuff like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, must push on to the next story. Is there I believe there's a new drone coming out, Ben?
Yes.
Drones last week.
Our fans out there, the new Mavic Air 2 dropped. When was it? I think it was late last week.
So this is from DJI?
Yeah, yep. So they're one of your top leaders in drones.
In more like consumer drones.
Consumer drones, yep.
Yeah,
so
right.
A lot of your photography and all that good stuff. So, they've dropped the second version of their Mavic, and it's some quite interesting upgrades. So their flight times have gone up by over 10 minutes, from 21 minutes up to 34, which is quite impressive. I think for drones, it is quite a struggle in the consumer market to get it over that half an hour time. So I think they've done a pretty good job there.
Well, that's an issue with just it being too heavy from carrying a battery around, isn't it?
Yeah, so they've bumped up the battery. It's up to a 3,500 milliamp hour battery. And it is, about 130 grams lighter. Sorry, heavier. 120 grams heavier.
Than the
which will obviously make up for that heavier. Sorry?
Than the original Mavic Air.
Yeah, than the original.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, which obviously comes a lot from that battery.
And do you think we were sort of talking last week that me and you have both had drones in the past, both DJI in fact. And do you think that 30 minutes is long enough off one battery or?
I think like for me, I had a Phantom 4 with 3 batteries, so I could get pretty close to, hour and a half of flight
across
time.
all 3 batteries.
Across all 3 batteries. Yeah. And I found that to be plenty, especially if you're just using it for hobbyists.
Yeah.
Like in non-commercial use.
Sorry, you said you had which DJI?
The Phantom 4.
The Phantom 4. And so is that better or worse than sort of the one that just came out? Is it the...
I'd say it probably is better because I had the original Phantom 4 and that one's a few years old now.
Yeah, right.
So this will be competing a lot with, what's that fully autonomous drone that's coming out soon?
By a new different company.
Yeah, by a different company. So Skydo.
Oh, okay.
Remember them, the Skydo 2?
Yeah, it's like a lot more cameras, blue and black, I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah, so that one retails for 1,000, where the new Mavic is 1,500.
Okay, so a bit cheaper. And so, what do you mean autonomous or autonomous?
So pretty much, it's almost. Well, I've set it up so it's almost a fly and forget. So you can either have a controller in your pocket, or you can do it visually. It tracks you, and it can guide around things like trees, obstacles, without any user interface.
Yeah, right. And so is that, and can the Mavic do that at all, or?
So the Mavic's got the second version of the obstacle avoidance. We'll obviously have to see in testing how that goes.
Yeah, I remember I had a Mavic Pro, which is, they sort of put them somewhere just above the Mavic Air. The Mavic Air is sort of like the Mavic Pro's little brother. And that had obstacle avoidance 1, and it was okay at just stopping when it sort of approached something, but it wouldn't go round it. It wouldn't really sort of help you go around it particularly. It just sort of went, oh, there's something in my way. I'm just going to stop here. You have to sort of help me go around. Yeah. I wonder if this new one, it helps that and increases that and allows you to sort of, like you say, fly and forget and just sort of be skiing or bike riding or doing whatever.
So
I see here it's got 18.5 kilometres of flight distance.
Yeah, so that's a pretty big upgrade from the original.
Yeah, which is very fast. So that's allowing it to go 18.5 kilometres away from you.
Yes, yeah.
Right. Okay, yeah. I wonder if there's a need to, to go 18 kilometres from yourself ever.
Well, with all your current laws, that would be a
yeah.
But at least you got the capability.
Yeah, being able to see the drone from 18 kilometres might be a bit difficult, but
yeah, so they bumped up the camera as well, so you can do 4K up to 60 frames now, which is a good.
Yeah, over 4K 30 of the original. Okay.
Yeah.
It's I guess it just depends then if you've got a screen that's 4K to watch it on.
Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, right. So, and do you think how do you think sort of the consumer market of drone is going, especially as these new laws have come in place around registering them and everything?
I think it's going in kind of like the spectrum of tech. I think it's probably going better than virtual reality.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it the holy grail that we were promised? Not yet. Is that future still ahead? Yeah, maybe. Again, it's kind of sitting almost with autonomous driving, which probably it's a bit more similar to. It's pretty much just waiting on the regulation to catch up and deciding what individual countries want to do with their regulation. I know here in Australia we've had a couple of big businesses. I think we had, was it Google? Was out in ACT?
Yeah, they had a bit of a go out there, and I think they sort of did a few tests. A few of them were, colossal failure. Others looked promising, and this was in preparation possibly for some drone delivery ideas. I think, on the sort of consumer side though, it's really just that people are so annoyed and they're so loud and obnoxious and everything that it's mainly getting away and pushing these laws and more laws. It'll be interesting to see if how much this, these new drones and especially this, fly and forget kind of drones coming out these days. Because I remember it's not hard to fly a drone, but to get those cinematic, really beautiful shots is difficult. I mean, you can put it up in the air and be like, oh yeah, that looks cool. Awesome angle or whatever. But yeah, to get those sort of beautiful cinematic shots, it's just not viable at the moment. And I wonder if those sort of AIs that are coming into place will increase that, and therefore, you don't need a pilot anymore, and therefore more people will be like, oh yeah, I'll get a drone to. I can imagine, especially skiing and stuff with is a big one. That'll increase, but yeah, I'll have to see. But have you had much experience with drones, Dale?
Personally, I've used a couple of photography ones, not owned by myself though. So just sort of giving them a test.
Giving it a go.
I guess beyond the like the new angles you can get, I'm not sure. What sort of is the video quality really comparable? Like, what's it comparable to? Is it similar to like a GoPro in quality, or what sort of performance are you getting out of the cameras on something like a drone that's $1,000, $1,500?
These can do pretty much HDR across. I know it's definitely video. I think it's
photo as well. I'm not sure if the GoPros can do HDR. I'm not entirely sure compared to GoPros. I would say, from my experience, and they were normally the sort of first generation, not these sort of second generation drones, but it was comparable to your iPhones and things like that. It was. Okay. I think it's more about, like you're saying, the angles you can get and the sort of variation in shots rather than the actual quality. I mean, it was very good quality, but it's a little bit of, as soon as you go over 1080p, 60, as soon as you kind of go over the sort of phone screen, what you're watching on YouTube quality stuff, for the tech people, and I am one of them. I am, like, oh, cool, this drone can do, 4K 60, and there are some out there, even bigger, better drones that can sort of are pushing 8K sort of resolutions. But I think it's more about the versatility of where it can go, rather than the sort of quality of the cameras. But all right. Well, new drone out, and a little bit of news on some Corona Crisis stuff, the new app. But well, we'll have to see where it all goes, and the sort of horizon of the Corona Crisis and all that will be interesting to follow over the next couple of weeks and months and all that. But if anyone would like to know any more about these things we've talked about today, we'll chuck some links in the show notes and for some more articles. But that was good to talk to you today, boys, about all this.
Yeah, it was good.
And I think we'll wrap it up there, and we'll talk to you guys next week. All right, see you later, guys.
See you guys.
Catch you next week.